Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Get Real show. We are here with Sophie,
Hi.
who just recently moved from the UK to Manhattan, and we also work together. So definitely would love to just start off. I think your story, from what I know of it, which is very little up to this point, but I know that you have a very, very large dance background, and that has really formulated yourself into who you are today, and that you've made a large transition. Obviously, you were a professional dancer and then went into corporate. So I imagine that's a very hard shift. And I also know, growing up in a sport like dance, running, swimming, a lot of different gymnastics, anything of that sort, sometimes can be challenging for a woman because oftentimes body image is linked, and how small you are is they say is important to your success in the sport. So definitely would love to just dive into your experience with dancing and how you feel like that has helped your life and how it's affected your mental health.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. To dive into that, so I danced for quite a few years when I was younger. I did it throughout school. I think it's the same for like most people that go into like a sports or a career of some sort. You know, you do it throughout your childhood, but it really kind of kicked off for me going into high school, secondary school. I did a lot of dancing inside, outside of school. And then, when I was 16, I decided to go to dance school. So I did that for 3 years. I moved from my home with my parents. So I moved down to London by myself. We rented a room there. I went to a dance school because I was younger. I couldn't get the full degree, but I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. It'll be definitely a life experience. It was great. You know, it was something that I was like, this is my dream. This is what I wanted to do. But I think, especially around the mental health piece, it was so hard. You know, it was hard not only to, you know, move away from my family and like live by myself and have to try and figure out how to cook, how to use a dishwasher, how to just live normal life. I was thrown into an environment where, you know, if you weren't sure of yourself, you know, it really kind of knocked your confidence and it really kind of knocked you back. You know, I remember, you know, I think at dance school we went in and we started at like 7:30 in the morning, and we started with like a workout class, and then for 8 hours we were like dancing, singing, acting, whatever it was. And we had loads of different classes, and I always felt like the odd one out. You know, I was never the, you know, skinny like pretty girl. I was never that person that was, you know, chosen to be at the front. And it was really hard at the start. You know, I was a hip hop dancer. So hip hop dancers, you know, we tend to just like feel a lot more, and we just like, you know, we do it for the joy. And there's some amazing dancers out there that are professionals as hip hop dancers, but going from doing hip hop and going into more of that commercial route and, you know, doing ballet, tap, jazz, modern, I just wasn't necessarily built for it. My first year was really tough doing that. It took a lot of strength. I remember so many times I used to just go home and cry and just be like, I'm not good enough, I can't do this. So it was really difficult. And then I think partway through that kind of 3-year course, I kind of just pulled myself together and went, actually, I am good enough, and I'm going to do everything I can to be the best. So I went out of my way to like learn ballet, and you know, I had like extra classes, and I really pushed myself to be better than I definitely was, and hopefully on par with some other people there. But yeah, it took me a good year and a half to get to that point. And it was really difficult. I think the other element which you mentioned around is, you know, the body confidence piece. You know, that's massive. Like I say, I wasn't the skinniest girl. I'm still not the skinniest girl, and you know, I'm happy with that. But you know, when you're in that sort of culture and you're dancing, you know, to go to a audition, like you have to be like 5'6" and a size probably 420 here. You know, you have to be tiny. Or when I was dancing back in the day, you did. A funny story, I'll tell you a funny story around that. I went to one audition. I won't say what it was for, but it said on the invite that you had to be 5'6". I'm not
Wow.
5'6".
Yeah.
But I was like, do you know what? I'm going to do this anyway. So I went and I wore my biggest heels. I wore my biggest heels and I rocked up. And anyway, we did the dance routine. And then they literally stood you in a line and they were like, yes, yes, no, yes, yes. And they just like lined you up and said yes or no. And to be honest, that was all based on your height, not on your ability. And they even turned around and said, to those who came in heels, I don't know why you did, because we didn't tell you to. And I was just like, oh yeah, it's because I'm small. So yeah, that was a bit of a character forming moment. And then I also remember within actually like the dance school phase, there was one time where we had to like strip down to our underwear and literally stand in front of a mirror and like say what we would change about ourselves and what we liked about ourselves as well. And that was really, I'm going to say character forming. That's my favourite word or phrase, should I say. But yeah, that was really kind of heart wrenching when you're like, you looked at yourself and you're like, I just don't like how I look. So yeah, that was tough.
Yeah. I definitely feel like there's similarities in sports like running where it's you have to be the tiniest and you have to try to be fit into this running mold, and when you don't, there's comments thrown around and people saying things. And I know, even like I've had this discussion with many friends from anywhere from actually rowing, swimming, running, any wrestling with guys even, that a lot of guys develop eating disorders in wrestling and fighting, but with swimming, there's people I know that like have had the little boards thrown at them by their coaches, like saying that they look like a fat pig and like just crazy stuff. Do you feel like it was coming a lot from the teachers and the coaches, like being pushed down to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, not all of them. You know, there's some amazing people out there, but there was definitely one or two that would make comments. You know, there was one person especially that, you know, would literally, we'd go into their classes and it would be like, right, we're doing a workout session because you all look fat today. And it was just like, this is not okay. Although it did like it helped me to become the person I am today. But it was like, yeah, you shouldn't feel like you're not good enough and you know your size is you know, you're too big, you're so, like some of the girls were really skinny and it's like, well, you're too skinny, and it's like, okay, what's can we just like figure out like what we're doing here? So yeah, there was multiple times where it was like, you guys need to stop eating. You know, there was a lot of girls that had eating disorders. You know, I'm very fortunate that I've never been in that situation, but you know, I did partway through, I went and got a personal trainer. I lost a lot of weight, and I was really skinny, probably too skinny, and I felt good then, but I still didn't feel good enough. And it's even like to this day, like I'll look into the mirror going, you know, I'm not good enough, or I need to lose weight here, or, you know, I need to lose weight on my arms, whatever it is. Like to this day, I still have that in my head. And I think it's with a lot of people that are from that sports background or performing background, like you always have that in your head. If you've grown up with it, like it's just natural, which is so bad. And, you know, I've kind of worked a lot on myself to go, no, it's okay to be slightly bigger. No, it's okay that you're not the perfect figure for everyone. And yeah, I think now, you know, I still go to the gym a lot and I actually enjoy that. I actually do that for my mental health. Makes me relax a bit more and not be grumpy. So I enjoy that, and I think there is still something in the back of my head going, well, you need to do this because otherwise you're gonna get fat and you're not going to be good enough. So yeah, I can't even take like a week off the gym. I really struggle like mentally to be like, it's okay to take time off. And I remember my PT from back home before I moved out here, she was like, Sophie, you're injured, like stop training. But I found it really difficult, and I'd still go to the gym even though I was injured. I when I was at dance school, I actually injured myself quite badly. I was on crutches and everything, and I still wanted to work out, and I still went to the gym, and it took me an extra like 6-9 months for me to recover because I didn't like listen, because I was like, well, I'm gonna get fat, and I was like, so I need to go to the gym. So yeah, it's really tough. Like now it's not so bad, but you know, I'm working on it. But I still go to the gym every week, at least once a week.
Yeah, I think you really touched on it, like talking about then some of the girls were too skinny, and the whole notion behind not being enough, like what is enough? What is the ideal frame or the ideal perfect body for dancing, running, swimming? Because there really isn't one. And I think we have to remember, but it's hard when certain things are being pushed down our throat by society, that everyone has a different figure and everyone has different preferences in themselves and what they're looking for and all of that. And I think it definitely comes from the top up, and we have to just not conform to going with the body trends, because even if you look at like the Kardashians, they were all more on the like thicker side and promoting like the big butts and the big boobs, and this is how you all need to look, and you all need to get boob jobs and butt implants to be the best. And then next thing you know, they're all super skinny now, and they've taken out all their procedures, and now you're supposed to be really skinny and look like this if you're following those trends. And it's just promoting like that your body is a trend, and it's not. Like, our bodies are given to us to be able to do the sports we like and the activities we like, and a lot of it, if we are being truly healthy and not going one way or the other, a lot of our body comes from like our genetics and our background, and different cultures have different figures and all of that, and we have to remember like we look like this for a reason, and that we just have to try to be healthy and do the things we like to do, because you're never going to win, because next thing you know, the Kardashians are going to be like, you know what, put your butts back in. And that's cool again. So that at the end of the day, I think we have to remember that you are enough, because if you're searching for if you're going to be enough, you never will be. Because in the height of my eating disorders, when I was super skinny, it was never skinny enough. Like, it was never, nothing was ever enough. So you can only be happy with how you are right now. And just try to be healthy physically and mentally, because if you put too much pressure on it, that's when I think it starts to become an issue, and that's what these sports tend to push.
Yeah, definitely. And you've touched upon a few things there, especially around like social media. It's like I was in that kind of say group, but I think a lot of people went through that phase when, you know, the Kardashians became famous, and, you know, liposuction or whatever it was became famous, like surgery became famous. And, you know, I contemplated it. I contemplated, okay, let me go and get my, you know, fat removed, or let me go get a boob job or whatever it was. And, you know, for one, like, I don't necessarily have the money that the Kardashians have just yet anyway, but I know I don't have the money, so it's like, well, why am I going to go and spend my hard-earned money on a procedure that I can't change if I'm not happy with it? But it's terrible. I think so many people go through the phase of, do I go get something done or do I not? And it's really difficult in this day and age, and maybe not so much nowadays. I think probably going back, even like 5-8 years ago, I think there was a lot of pressure around getting surgery, and in some elements there still are, but it's like you do have to remind yourself you are good enough, and there are other ways for you to get a body that you are more comfortable with, and not just having surgery. You know, go and like work out, go and get a PT, like, if you really want to change yourself. But, you know, don't think that you just need to fall back on surgery, because what if you're not happy with the outcome? Because that's going to be even worse than you continuing with how you are. So yeah, I think that's like a point that I want to raise, is like, don't just change yourself because that's what society says, because there will be another trend. You know, there will be something else coming out in the next, you know, few years, and you'll be like, oh, why did I get that done? Because now I want to change it. And to relate it back to dance, I think I've seen in the industry, and I'm not in it anymore, but I've seen in the industry the past kind of 5 years, it's really changed. You know, there's a lot of acceptance around different types of bodies out there now. You know, you see on like commercials, or you see like people on TV, and you know, there's a lot more, I say, curvaceous women that are, and I, you know, I know a few that are doing absolutely amazing, and I'm like, that's great. You know, literally as I was coming out of that kind of dance era, it then, you know, became a thing where, you know, it's okay to be more, you know, curvaceous or just have a different body. So I have to say, I do think that the dance industry has changed. It's not what it once was, depending on obviously, you know, whether you're doing ballet or hip hop or whatever it may be. But there's still, you know, a way to go. There's still kind of thoughts that people are going to have, and that's just natural.
Yeah, and I think the same for the sports industry as a whole. Like even with running, I've seen so many, and obviously it's my algorithm and that's just what's popping up, but a lot of runners talk about that were far better than I ever was, like collegiate runners and professional runners, talking about now they've redeveloped their relationship with running and talking about how unhealthy it was before, and that you don't need to starve yourself to be fast, and that actually that leads to injury, and it's not sustainable. Aside from stress fractures and just constant leg injuries, constant being lethargic, it's just unsustainable. You're not going to be able to sustain it. And oftentimes you then end up developing other eating disorders off of that one. So I do think it's great in all industries at this point, that they are more accepting of different body types, because some of the best people, like I remember thinking you had to be really tall and really, really skinny to be the fastest. And then the one year, a girl that was a lot tinier, like short wise, and then built just super muscular and maybe like thick for running, which not for real life, but for running, just came out and like blew everyone away and won. And that's the thing, like it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. If you are training properly and being healthy, that's what's important, not down to the exact calorie, which is what they want us to believe. But it sounds like obviously you took a lot of positives from dance too, and it built you into who you are today. I'm super curious, transitioning from dance into corporate life, what that was like and how you feel like that affected your identity and your mental health.
Oh wow, what a question. Yeah, that was tough. You know, I took the decision to move out of like the performing industry. I came to a bit of a dilemma, because I was like, within like the performing world, there's a few avenues you can take. You can be a performer, so you can go like do all the stage work, you know, gigs, things like that, or you can be a teacher. And I loved both, and I was like, I don't know which one I want to do, and I found it really difficult to manage both of them, because every time that I'd have like I was teaching in a class, it was like, oh, there's an audition this week, and I was like, now I need to get someone to cover my class. So it was just, I couldn't find the balance, and it just wasn't really working for me. And I also kind of sat down and, you know, went through my goals and was like, okay, where do I see myself in 5 years, and all of these things that, you know, some people do, or, you know, that is good to kind of think about before you make the move. And yeah, so I decided, okay, let me go into the corporate side of the world. Let me try a normal job, as you might call it. So I did a lot of like temping, and I was like a receptionist. I did like PA work, loads of random stuff, and I actually really enjoyed it. And I was like, not to say that this is easy, but I was like, compared to like dance and, you know, the physical side of things and the mental side of things, I actually just found like the corporate side quite easy to go into, because I was like, God, it's nothing compared to getting up at like 4:30 in the morning and going to do like a workout class. Like it's fine, and then obviously dancing throughout the day. So I was like, this is great and this is easy. But I don't think I really came to terms with the fact that I left my passion behind until actually a few years ago. And bear in mind, this is how long have I not really been dancing for? Probably 8 to 10 years. So it's taken me probably about 7 years to actually come to terms with, okay, like you left your passion behind, the creativity behind. And I actually I've just got a mind coach And it's interesting because that's some of the stuff we're touching upon now. She's like, you're a creative, yet you're in the corporate world. And I was like, yeah, I know. And she was like, how can we be more creative in what you do? And I'm like, that's such a good point. And even like, she's like, oh, why don't you go and do dance on the side? But I'm someone who I really struggle to have like, I say something outside of work, unless it's like gym or something that's, I say basic, but something like that I don't really have to think about, because I'm so competitive that I'll want to like throw everything into it. So I find that very difficult to go back into dancing and doing it as like a hobby, because I know how competitive I am. And an interesting story. Haven't really told many people this, but I came to obviously New York. I've been here 7 months now. I originally wanted to move to New York because of dance. I came out here when I was 15 with my family, and I went off and went to dance classes, and they went off and did all the touristy stuff, and I loved it. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to move here. I'm going to be Beyonce's backing dancer. That never happened, but
Not
call
yet.
me Beyonce.
Yeah.
I'm joking. But I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to do this. And then obviously I didn't do it with dance, so then that's part of the reason I moved here, because I've always said I was going to move here.
Yeah.
Anyway, came out here last year. I went to a dance class. I was like, right, I'm going to go back to where I was like, this is why I wanted to move to New York. Worst time of my life.
Wow.
It was horrendous. I went to a beginner's dance class. I'm not going to name where, but somewhere that, you know, I used to dance at, and I was like, okay, it's beginners. I've got this. Bear in mind, I haven't danced properly for quite a few years, but I was like, it's fine. It was not beginners. It must have been like intermediate advanced, teaching so quickly, and a heels class as well. And yeah, I just felt so out of my comfort zone. And I literally got on the subway home and cried.
Wow.
And that was like another thing that kind of just made me realize, okay, like you're not that person anymore. Like you've changed. But yeah, it's very humbling when you do something like that. And then you realise the journey that you've been on, and that you have kind of made a whole life change. And, you know, it's been however many years that I haven't really danced. So, yeah, that was hard. But it's hard going from doing one thing, and then you see, like, the people that you used to dance with doing well and doing this and doing that. And you're like, that could have been me. But then I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't made the decision. So,
Yeah, I had a similar experience too, being attracted to New York for fashion originally, because that's what I first went to school for, was supposed to be in, and I wanted to be this big fashion mogul and get into that. And even my first thoughts of moving to New York was, I was brought here when I was really little with my grandma, and we went to see a Broadway show, and I was always about performing and being on stage too. And I was first attracted by Broadway. And then when I got into fashion, I was like, I'm going to end up in New York for fashion. And then obviously as well ended up here through a different route. But I definitely think it is really challenging to go like see the people that you went to school with or danced with achieving things in that space. But at the end of the day, that's my phrase today, at the end of the day, you need to remember, like, you're doing so much in your career, and you're so successful in your career, and you still can go dance, but it might just not be to that level, because you're not allocating the same amount of time you once did, and that these other people are into it. And I struggle with that as well. Like, I just want to hop on an erg and row as fast as I did 2 years ago when I was rowing every day, and you just can't do that. And being able to cope with that and realize that you have to prioritize certain things, and then you can do the things you love as well, and that you don't have to be the best at every single thing, which is very challenging when you are competitive and you do want to pour everything you have into it, but there's only so many hours in the day. So just being able to balance those passions, which I'm still learning about too, because I am putting a decent amount of time into my running right now, but then like swimming and biking and rowing, and I can't be the best at every single thing and still be successful in my career as well, which is really hard.
No, it is. I think you're right about trying to find that balance. Like, you can and I'm starting to learn this now, you can have like hobbies outside of work, and you can, you know, do things just for fun. Like you say, you don't have to be the best at everything, but I think working in, you know, a sales culture, like that's just the type of mentality I have, and I know you have as well, that, you know, you just want to be the best, so you put that towards anything you do. But it's so difficult. But I have been, you know, I have been to dance classes over the years that I've enjoyed, and I've just done it for fun, and I've come out feeling great. And, you know, I probably need to get back to that and find that, you know, avenue and outlet. But I think it's really important that you kind of acknowledge the fact that you have left something behind, and you go, that's okay. And, you know, like I say, it took me quite a few years, you know, quite a few years, God, I can't speak, quite a few years. And then I literally like broke down and was like, what have I done? But then you have to remind yourself, well, look at everything I've achieved, and look at what I've managed to do. Because I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't be in this position now if I hadn't have made that choice. So
yeah, and remembering that you can always go back to that. It's something that will never be, like, you're not closing the door forever, and that you can incorporate creativity even in what we do in some way. I mean, there are some parts of our career that you are performing a bit, so you can have that performance aspect, and then definitely finding ways to make it more creative, which it might need a little more creativity. So that's something that there's new minds bringing something to the table that might have not been done before, which is great. But I definitely, too, how you said you went back to the dance and it wasn't how you remembered it. Like, I've seen that in fashion, where like I might glamorize like what I could have been in fashion, and then I talk to a girl that is in fashion, and it kind of sounds like a nightmare in some ways. So there's always going to be like it could have been this way, but it isn't, for a reason. And I think that we're meant to figure out lessons in what we're doing now, and then maybe our journey is to find how to incorporate our creativity and our passion into what we're doing today, and add something to it that has never been added to it before.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I'm literally doing a therapy session here today. You're actually giving me pointers that I'm like, I need to look at that. But yeah, I think coming from like a creative background, a sports background, whoever you are, it's going to help you in life. I can see that from like everyone I've known that's done, you know, something in their background that is competitive, or that needs resilience, or whatever it may be. It always will help you in life. But I think, I think I'm slowly trying to figure out, okay, cool, how do I, you know, not just do work 24/7, but actually enjoy it and bring that creativity back into my life. And you know, I love dancing, and you know, maybe it is a case of like trying something new and getting out there, and you know, go and enjoy myself, let my hair down every so often, and trying a new class. So you're inspiring me to actually go and do some stuff now. So
and doing things differently too. Like I don't run the exact same that I used to run. Like, I now have found trail running, which is totally different. I never even had really stepped foot on a trail before, like different things like that you can do it differently, where you can still revisit that love, but then not revisit the bad parts of it, because there are certain parts that we left behind on purpose. And it's like getting out of a bad relationship. I think sometimes you see it with rose-colored glasses and forget that there were bad parts of it too, and that contributed to why we moved on in the first place, because it wasn't serving us fully at that point, or we would have still been there. That's a good point, for sure. And I think you mentioned it earlier as well. It's like everyone has a different journey, and you may speak to people that are doing the thing that you thought you were going to do, and actually, if you look at it, they're, you know, maybe not living in the best house or the best conditions, or they're not actually earning any money, or they're not, you know, they are literally doing it for the pure love, which you know, is a lot. If you've got a career and it is purely for the love, and you know, like dance or sports, that's absolutely amazing, because I think that's really hard to have a career that is
out of pure love and keep that going for so long. So I definitely admire those people. But, you know, I do think moving out of that world, and probably similar to yourself, you know, it was, say, the right choice for me at the time, because could I have kept my passion, you know? And actually I think when you go and you take your passion into a career, it's very different. When you are getting paid for something you love, like, you have to love it, because, you know, you have to work with a business mindset, not a, like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this because this sounds great, when actually you're getting paid nothing. Like, you have to now see it as a business, and it's very different. So yeah, hats off to anyone who's kind of stayed in love with what they do and are able to make a business out of what they love, because yeah, I can imagine it's hard, and that's why I didn't do it.
Yeah. And personally for me, I was just thinking, it actually, my failure in fashion is what I considered it, has fueled me to have a lot more motivation today. Yes, I've always been competitive. I've always tried to be my best. However, I have an additional chip on my shoulder now because I failed out of fashion school. After not even a full 2 years, I failed out because of the mental health issues I had going on. I wasn't showing up for classes, and eventually I didn't even realize my computer just locked me out. I was in class, and I needed to go get help and like face everything, even though it took a bit more time. But it was a wake-up call. But in that moment, I felt like things were kind of turning around. It was spring semester, and I had really liked this one class, and I was sitting in that class, went to log on to my computer, and it was locked. And I had to go to my guidance counselor, who I never went to see before. I was like, who is this girl's name again? And yeah, I essentially failed out of school. I could have gone back, like I was on academic probation or something, but didn't even end up going that way. But for a while, I considered that I failed. And it was a clear cut for me, black and white. You succeed or you fail, and I failed. So then after that, I spiraled even more, because then I threw my whole life away. I was like 18 or 19 and thought my entire life was over. I was like, I threw my entire life away. I'm a failure. Spiraled even more until I really hit rock bottom, and then started to overcome everything and heal. But that added an additional chip on my shoulder to show everyone, look how much I can succeed today. And I've had to balance out, because you can't keep like an unhealthy chip on your shoulder. I've had to balance out the fact that I like keeping that edge, I call it, but also being at peace with the whole experience, because I am truly, truly at peace with it all. But I still keep that edge, you know?
I love that. I love how you say chip on your shoulder. I'm going to use that now.
Yeah.
We all have a chip on our shoulder. No, I'm joking. Well, no, I think you do. You always have something to go like, this is what I could have been. So now I have to be better than that person that I could have been. Which, I think is such a good point. There was literally something came into my brain, and I literally had forgotten what I was going to say, and it was, oh no, this is it. I read something, and this actually helped me with the whole process of moving away from, you know, the creative world, and it's actually in everyday life, is that you know, it's good for you to say that you're going to quit something. It's not a bad thing to quit something. You know, actually you quitting and saying this doesn't serve me anymore actually can help you. So I think people are so scared of quitting, thinking, no, that makes me like, say, a bad person, or it makes me not good enough, or it makes me a failure. It doesn't. Like, if you know when to quit something, that actually shows that you've got, you know, a bit of an ounce about you've got something like where you understand this isn't serving you anymore. So that's something that really helped me with my journey, is, you know when to quit, and know that it's not a bad thing. You know that you haven't failed, you've just gone down a different path.
And I think too, having the opportunity to start over also teaches you a lot and teaches you how to detach yourself from your ego and have to start at ground zero, because you went from maybe one of the top in whatever industry you were in to now you know nothing. Now you're a beginner, you're at the bottom of the food chain, coming from the top, and how to navigate that and get yourself back up, really pull yourself up from the bootstraps and get yourself back on top. But that takes time, and it takes having to sit with, I might be the worst right now. I might be like really struggling at what I'm doing right now, but this is temporary, and I'm gonna fix it.
Yeah, I think that journey can become addictive as well. You know, I think starting from the bottom, now we're here. Anyway, that's my
Exactly.
I did say I was going to sing on this. I think that's like it's the journey that makes anything. Like, you could be the most successful person, and you know, I've had a great career so far, and I've seen success. I've been at the top of, you know, my game, and you know, that's amazing, and to get the awards and to go and all these incentives, like, it's amazing. But actually, you know, the journey is what built me as a person, not actually the end reward. And I hear that all the time, and that's something that resonates with me a lot, because you know, I moved myself to New York and took myself out my comfort zone, because I actually like the journey, and it makes me a better person. So you know, hats off to anyone who is, you know, starting again, or you know, has changed careers or whatever they've done, because you know, it's really tough, but it's going to make you a better person in the long term.
Yeah. And also, we briefly touched on before we started that in the UK, mental health is viewed very differently than in America. What do you feel like is the difference with that? Because obviously I've never even been to the UK. I've worked for British companies for quite some time, but would love to know the experience of that.
Well, first of all, you have to go to the UK just to experience it. It's very different. I think it's started to change over the past few years, but definitely within, like, I say, the corporate world, or just the environment I was in, it wasn't spoken about as much as it is here. Like, here it is talked about often. You know, everyone talks about, you know, they have coaches or therapists, and it's very normal. In the UK, and I think maybe that is our culture, it's very taboo. We don't really talk about those things. You know, I remember like my like grandparents, you know, they don't talk about their feelings. You know, the British are known to be very like, say, stern, or just like polite, and just like, this is us and you don't need to know about our lives. So I think it's just a culture thing. It's like, we're not as open, and I think it's only in the past few years I've seen in the UK that people started talking about mental health a lot more. You know, even like working through your lunch break or staying late. In the UK, it's very normal in a lot of businesses to do that, whereas when I came here, it was like, no, people actually went for an hour lunch break. I was like, what? I was like, there's me sitting in the office, like, just working away, and they're like, are you not going to have lunch? I'm like, yeah, I've had it. But it's very normal in the UK for people just to like work non-stop and work late. And here, like, most people are out the door like as soon as they can, because they've got, you know, lives outside of work, which is amazing. And it's great to be in a place where, and actually I need to probably live my life a little bit more and not work so much. But yeah, it's very different in that sense. You know, we don't talk about it in the UK much. Here, everyone talks about it. People are very open about it. You know, even coming on this podcast, like, you can talk about it, and it's just not as much of a thing in the UK. And you know, if you're in the UK and you say you've got a therapist, people will be like, have you got a therapist? Are you all right? And it's like, here it's like, yeah, I've got a therapist. They're like, oh, nice, me too. I'm like, wow, like, it's so different.
That's even like, I came from a small town, and that was more the mindset there, like, and drastically changed over the years. When I was younger, it was like, oh, if you have a therapist, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Like something's wrong with you. That's why you have a therapist. And I think definitely in cities like LA and New York and more in this trendy health culture, people started being like, oh, my therapist said blah, 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 like at lunch with their girlfriends.
Yeah.
And that was really never a thing here as well until the past, I don't know, maybe 10 years in the cities, 5 years everywhere else. But yeah, I've definitely noticed from working with a lot of people from the UK, like a lot of people have been like, oh, we don't even know what mental health is. Like
Yeah.
there's definitely different awareness levels on it, but depending if you're putting yourself, it seems like you need to put yourself into the circles more in the UK. Like it's not just, you have to seek it out is the pattern I've seen, where as here now you really can't, it's talked about everywhere.
Yeah.
It's talked about in every company, and definitely more of a thing here. But what's actually really interesting is I follow a lot of like sober accounts on Instagram, and some of the first came from the UK.
Oh, really?
Which is very interesting, but they definitely have talked about that. It's more like they're just starting this thing. So and that has drastically changed starting in New York, and then now is starting to go to other American cities too. So it is on the rise, I think. But
Yeah.
I do definitely see that is the culture, more bottled up
Yeah.
than here. But I think all the countries are trying to get to the point where we can talk about mental health a lot more, because I was definitely taught like, don't talk about your feelings, don't share when you're struggling.
Yeah.
But it is very helpful when you actually can have open discussion.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think as someone, like, I bottle a lot of things up. I am British, that's what we do. But like, that's just the way I've like been brought up, and it's, you know, nothing wrong with that. And, you know, I actually quite like being like that. But I think over the past few years, I've really kind of started talking about things more and being a lot more open, and it's actually excelled like my life. You know, I've made decisions that I probably wouldn't have done if I hadn't have spoken to someone about it, and you know, getting coaches, and, you know, moving forward in my career, you know, moving abroad, like all of those things I wouldn't have done if I didn't speak to someone about. So yeah, I think it's so important to have like an outlet and be able to talk about things, because yeah, you don't want to keep things bottled up, which you know, like I say, I've done quite a bit, and I still do to an extent, but you don't, you know, just get everything off your chest, be an open book as much as you can, because it'll make you I suppose a lot more confident as a person, and it'll make you feel better as well. Like I think a lot of, when I had things bottled up, I'd have a lot of anxiety, and I'd overthink everything, and I'd wake up and worry about stuff in the morning. Now, luckily, it's not too bad. So, yeah, I think you've got to kind of talk to someone about anything that you need to.
Yeah, and I do think there's a way to keep it professional when talking about, like, mental health and work and all of that. Like, sometimes I've seen companies maybe go too far overboard, where, like, it is my belief, and I'm not saying I'm correct, but my belief would be to like that you have to take care of yourself outside of work, have a therapist, do the things you love to stay mentally healthy, where you're not the person crying at work every single day of your life, or like bringing your issues to work. Like if there is actually a major issue in your life, obviously tell the right people and go about it appropriately, but there certainly is a line where you don't want to go too far in the other way, where it's only about mental health, because you have to get work done too. So I think that's what a lot of businesses are struggling to achieve right now, is like, how do we have productivity and like this great mindset, but also focus on mental health. And it is to my belief that to have a great mindset, you need to work on the mental health too, but you need to be able to do that on your own time as well.
Yeah, you definitely have to work on yourself outside of work. You can't rely on like a business that's hired you to do a job to actually be your therapist as well. I think you're lucky if you go into a business and you can genuinely talk to people, and you feel that like you have your people there. And I'm very lucky that throughout my whole career I've always had someone I can talk to within the business that I've worked in, which is great. And it's being able to have that like comfort blanket or whatever it may be of someone that you can literally just like, let's go get a coffee and let's go have a chat. But it is really difficult, and I think businesses have to remember, like, people are people. Like, you have to manage people first, rather than the numbers or whatever it may be. If it is a sales environment, like, everyone's different and everyone goes through a lot. So it's like, okay, how do we manage this person in the sense of, like, what do they need? What's the best thing for them? How are we going to get productivity out of them? But also, how do we show that we understand them, their struggles, what they're good at, what they're not good at? So I think companies need to, I suppose, stop worrying so much about, okay, mental health, let's have all of these different things for mental health, and actually go, well, let's make sure that we are supporting our team members by understanding who they are and actually working with their skill sets, rather than just working with, I don't know, the numbers, or this is how we do things. Like, we have to really like work with the people, because everyone's different. Everyone likes to be managed different. Everyone likes to be taught differently. Everyone works differently. So you have to, if you can master that, I think the mental health piece will come from it. So yeah, it's difficult though. Like, I would hate to be running a company in this day and age. Like, it's so hard. You can't do anything right.
Exactly. Like, it just seems like either way you can't really win on paper. But yeah, I definitely want to bring up, obviously, we just experienced something crazy at work where devastating really is the word, where we lost my really good friend, our teammate, someone that was in the office. And I've really never had to deal with something like that at all, losing someone my age so close to me, but also at like in a working environment. And definitely just want to talk about that and see what it was like for your experience being in that situation as well.
So it was hard. It's never happened to me before as well. Like, I've never been in that situation. I think the difficult part was, I managed her. So instantly, you sit there and you go, what could I have done? I think that's maybe just the protective side of me, is like, could I have done anything? Could I have like helped at all? How could I support? But yeah, it was, it kind of hits home a bit, where you go, like, you need to live your life. Like, life's way too short. And I still think about it like now, like it'll come into my head about obviously the passing and what happened. And she was an amazing person, and there's so many qualities that she had that I'm like, wow, like I need to be like that. So I'm I take that in when that feeling comes over me, and I think of the situation. Like, I'll take that feeling in and go, right, okay, how do I make myself a better person from this situation? But yeah, I don't wish like that situation on anyone. Like, it was so tough. And yeah, I don't even know what else to say, because it's just a situation that you just don't want to be in. And you can't, like I say, I sit and I went, okay, how could I have helped? Because like I say, when you're in that position where you are managing, or you're close to someone like that, you will always think that. But sometimes these things happen, and you just have to say, okay, cool, this is now going to make me live life more. So from that, I've taken that I need to actually enjoy my time here in New York, get out more, meet more people, live my life as much as I can, because she did. She had such a great social life, and she did so many different things outside of work. So I'm like, right, okay, let me take that inspiration and run with it. But to have someone who's within a business and then obviously passing away, it's gonna have a bit of a cloud over the team for a while. So
definitely. And that's like, thinking through it and feeling through it is really where I've gotten to as well. It's just like, she was such a bright light person, and at the end of that day, I know she would want us to be taking positive lessons from it, and not like having it eat away at us where we're spiraling, what I truly believe is what she would want. And now from that, I feel like I've always tried to practice a lot of gratitude, but just like so much more gratitude for the people in our lives, the relationships in our lives. Every single day we get to wake up and be outside, because it's crazy, because obviously we know that death is prevalent in our society. We all die. But it takes sometimes a extreme tragedy to wake us up from just like going to work and grinding to like, let's be grateful for every moment, because you never know when it's going to be your last, which is the harsh reality of it, but also the opportunity to really be grateful for every single thing we have and try to have a positive mindset around everything, because even the bad things that happen, you can learn a lesson from it, or just enjoy all of it, because there's going to be lows, there's going to be bad times, but it's all making us into a better person. But yeah, definitely that was like I just know that having that like delivered at work it is like an insane experience. I definitely wouldn't want to wish on anyone as well, and definitely something that I think no company thinks about, because like there's not like a protocol for this, because it's something that shouldn't really happen. But definitely something maybe that companies can think about, having like an emergency plan for when crises happen like this.
Yeah. I mean, look, no company is going to plan for that, right? I think it's something that, you know, I've worked for so many companies and it hasn't really ever happened, or not within like, you know, my close team or anything like that. So yeah, companies won't plan for that just because of, you know, they don't want it to happen, they don't see it happening. But I do think that it's going to be hard, you know, for any company to go through, and it's down to obviously the people that are delivering the message to make sure that the message is received correctly. And you know, it's all around support, right? You've got to give support to the business, you've got to give support to the teams, and yeah, it's just something that's so, like I say, abstract. Like it doesn't happen all the time. So it's something that no one prepares for. And then when we get to it, it's like, okay, how do we deal with this? Which then you have to think on your feet. So yeah, I don't want companies to prepare for it, because we don't want it to happen. But then I do think like there has to be an understanding of when this does happen, what are we going to do? And how can we help people? But yeah, it's tough for anyone.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously being a woman in the corporate world and managing other women and just being in an environment, luckily the company we work for has a lot of other women in leadership too. I would love to hear about your experience on that side, because it is obviously a male dominated industry, and see really how that has affected you.
Yeah, so first of all, I love the fact that I'm basically in a suit and we're talking about working in the corporate world, but it is, I've got trainers on, got trainers on, you know. Yeah, it's very different being like a female within the corporate world. And, you know, I'm massive around, you know, women in business, women in technology, whatever it may be, because I think there's not enough women that have a seat at the table. There's not. And that's like for any company out there, you know, even for, you know, people starting businesses, I don't think there is enough women out there that are doing these things. And I think it's because we do have different mindsets. I think as a female, we'll always have doubts, and we won't be as confident as males sometimes. So I think as a female, you have to put yourself out there a bit more. You have to believe in yourself. You have to find that inner confidence. And then you have to make sure you surround yourself with great people that will push you as well. You know, you have to find your allies. And, you know, we did an event the other week and that was something that they said. And, you know, I've taken that away. Like, find your allies within that room that will support you, that will elevate you. And whether they're females, whether they're males, whoever it is, like, you need people that want to elevate you. And I think as a female in the corporate world, if you can find someone who can support you and push your career, and like talk about you in a room and be like, oh yeah, you need to hire Sophie, or yeah, Sophie's amazing, like that's going to help you. So I think, you know, as a female, we have so many different qualities. A lot of the time we do put people first. We do manage people rather than manage, I say, numbers or manage, you know, just general processes. That's a great quality. So understand what your qualities are as a female, whether it is like you're more empathetic, which a lot of females or women tend to be, and, you know, go on your strengths and then work with the you know, men in the room and go, well, these are your strengths, these are mine. So actually we're going to have a great partnership, because you can bring something to the table and so can I. But don't ever think that because you don't have the same qualities as a male that you're not good enough, because what you have is probably even better. I'm just going to say that, but no, it's too, like, don't put yourself down because you're a female. It is hard out there. There's not enough women that are sitting in these you know, boardrooms. You know, if you look at however many companies that are out there in the world, and a lot of the ones that I've looked at, they don't have women at board level, or they'll have like 1 out of 5, and a lot of them say, yeah, we want 2 or 3, but that's great that you're going to say that. You actually need to make that happen. So
yeah, definitely. I feel like I've always loved working in male dominated environments, because it is an extra challenge, and it is like you feel like you're on this sports team and extra competitive, but because there is something extra to prove, I think, which you can use to your benefit. Like I do have one more thing to prove out here, is that exactly, is that like I'm not only doing this, but I am a woman doing this. But I do definitely think that we have qualities to bring to the table that men just don't really. Like women's intuition and empathy, and but just a different way of thinking, just even in strategy. Like, we just have a different mindset and background that could benefit whatever company or whatever we're doing. But then I also feel like I often channel like my masculine energy, which can help me as well. So I do think it's important that you have both that contribute to the overall success of a business, because you need that male energy, and you also need a woman's as well.
I think it's hard though, and taking it just outside of, like, let's say, the corporate world and being in a male dominant environment, like 100%, like, have your masculine energy. Like, there's, if you want to be at the top, you need some form of masculine energy, because you've got to kind of go in and you know, put your foot down or whatever it may be. But I think it's hard if you are too masculine, or if you are too, I suppose, if you push your female energy away, it's harder when you're outside of work. And that's something that I've come to realize, you know, especially over the past year or so. You know, I've always been like, okay, work, get in. Like, I've always been like the male, let's put it that way, you know. And I pay my own bills, I do this, I literally run my household. I mean, it's me, run my household, I work, I literally am grafting like a guy. But I need to find my female energy. And I think that's so important. And especially you come out to New York and you're like, okay, I need to make friends, I need to date, I need to do whatever. You've got to find that female energy, because you can't take your work persona into day-to-day life, which I think I'm only just kind of realizing in the past kind of few years is like, you can be like different inside and outside of work, and you don't have to have a kind of shield up all the time. Like at work, like you'll probably see, like I'm very much like work, like let's not talk about anything, let's not talk about feelings unless we need to, or you know, I'm very much like this is black and white. Whereas like outside of work, I feel like I'm a lot more, you know, loving and enjoy life, and I just have to feed into that a bit more and not let it cross over too much.
I definitely think you need a good group of female friends to channel the feminine energy. And then also you would hope that you can have a partner eventually that can make you comfortable being in your female energy. Because although at work I'm like, yes, girl boss, like I don't want to be like that in real life. Like in real life you would hope that you can be channel like your softness and
Yes.
be in your soft girl energy, because you don't always have to be the one paying the bills and grinding, and like it is a little exhausting, you know. Like, I don't think as women that we were meant to necessarily have that be our life 24/7. Like, yes, we can hold a great job and have that be our work persona, but then outside of work, how can we become softer and be more in touch with our femininity?
Yeah, so true. And I think, you know, something that I'm starting to think about as I get older is like, I would love to settle down and love to have a family, but at the moment I'm so like focused on work, and I have been, and I'm kind of slightly moving out of that, and I'm moving into the years of my life where I'm thinking about, okay, what am I going to do about my actual life in terms of like having a family, settling down, and that's something that, you know, is in the back of my mind, and I'm just like, I can't do that if I'm running at 120 miles per hour. And I think now I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I balance? What do I need to do in order to actually, you know, focus a bit more on my personal life and the goals I want to have on that side. You know, I've spent the last 8 years odd focusing on my career, which has been great, but now it's like, okay, cool, how can I still focus on my career but also have the life I want outside? And like I say, whether that is family, kids, whatever it is, it's like you've got to try and figure that out. So trying to figure that out, figure out your feminine energy, you know, trying to find someone, that a partner that supports you to do that. And also another thing I was thinking about is, how do you find a partner that, like, you know, you might want, say, I'm going to say an alpha male or alpha female, whatever it may be. It's like, you know, you need to find someone that balances you. You can't both be kind of alpha and like charging for like a massive career. And it's like, there are sacrifices that you need to make in life. So yeah, it's just a journey that is just constant, and right now we're just trying to figure it out.
Exactly. No, I certainly think that like I would identify under like an alpha female, but then I don't want to be that in a relationship at all.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely is the challenge, and like a lot of my friends struggle with that as well, that like do a lot and are people that like expect a lot from themselves, and then it's like, how do you find this person that wants you to flourish but then also is holding the fort down?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, but you know, I was reading something the other day, because I read a lot and I listen to podcasts and all of those things, and it's like, you know, you're not going to find someone who's perfect. You're never going to find someone who has everything you want. So you have to understand, okay, these are like the 3 core things, and then anything else is a blessing. So, you know, if you want to be an alpha female in work, be an alpha female in work. Find your female energy once you get out, if you want to, and don't try and find the perfect partner, you know, because well, if you do exist, call me. If you don't, then, you know, we can figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. How do you find the dating in New York compared to the UK?
Question. It's very different. It's very different. I find it almost slightly transactional here. Like, bear in mind, I'm in like Manhattan, so it's like, yeah, people date, but are they dating just to date, or are they dating because they want to find someone? That's what I can't really figure out. It is similar in London as well, though. People love to talk about their feelings here, though. Like, so when you date, like, people will like genuinely talk. Like, I feel like I've got more and more open because people will literally talk to me about their feelings. It's so weird. Whereas like in the UK, you go on a date and you don't talk about feelings. You know, you date someone for 8 months and you don't know if they like you. Whereas here it's like, people will just like, so this is what I'm thinking, and how do you feel about this? And I'm like, this is so weird. You know, someone who bottles everything up and doesn't talk a lot, apart from obviously now. Yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah. Do you feel like the shift coming to New York has helped your mental health?
100%. 100%. I think if you saw me a year ago, I was like, just like powering on, alpha female. I'm like a boss. Like, I'm doing this, all about work. Used to work all hours under the sun. Used to work on weekends, you know, and I thought that was my life. And then obviously took the move to New York as a kind of like, let's start fresh, but I want to actually find a balance in my life. And I think now, you know, I don't work nowhere near as much as I used to, which is a blessing. I'm trying to get out a bit more. Like, I need to go and enjoy my life, but that's something that obviously I'll start doing as I you know, meet more people. And I'm actually now talking about things, you know, like I say, I've got a mindful coach. I'm doing, you know, all these different things to help me, and, you know, just think about my life as a whole, rather than just having, like, I had a business coach before. Instead of just having a business coach thinking about, okay, my career, now I'm like, okay, cool, well, what can I do outside of work? Like, what do I want outside of work? And I'm getting to that age where, like I say, I do actually need to think about it. So I think it was, you know, a great decision, because it has helped me, because also it's been such a challenge, you know, moving to a new country. I don't think anyone realizes how hard it is. Like, it's hard. You know, moving to a new country, brand new job, didn't know anyone, like, didn't know how to go buy food, like, didn't know where to go, didn't know don't even know how healthcare works still. You know, it's all new to me, and that's, like, it's hard. So it kind of humbles you again, like, makes you realize, okay, cool, like, we're starting from basics, we're going to build ourselves back up. But, you know, you can't put too much pressure on yourself, which I normally do. And since I've been here, I haven't put too much pressure on myself for once. So
yeah, that's great, because I know even moving to New York, I'm literally from the Northeast, so it's barely a move, was challenging for myself. I can't even fathom moving from another country, because even certain phrases you say, I'm like, what are you saying? Like, it's just such a culture difference and language difference, and, like, getting acclimated. It sounds like the people are very different too, I'm sure is extremely challenging. So I just think it's so amazing that you took the leap and you came here and are doing so much here. And I definitely think it's a good idea to be doing things outside of work, because I know for myself, like, if I don't refuel my soul essentially outside of work, I'm not going to be able to put what I need to into work. And then like, personally for me, I would then just start resenting the work, because it's keeping me from, like, doing the things I love and make me me. So it is all still very challenging to, like, find a balance between all of these millions of different things and keep it all rolling. But yeah, definitely very thankful for you coming on and getting real. Lastly, I just would love to know, like, what you would say to your younger self, like your little dancing self, about if you could go back and talk to her.
Oh, wow. What would I say? I would probably say, you've got this. You know, never doubt yourself. Like, you'll find a way.
That's great. Well, thank you again for coming on and getting real. And hopefully your journey's been incredible so far, and this is just the beginning, and I can't wait to see all you do in the States now.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course.